This is my first YouTube video, and I'm going to talk about chess and how to play chess in about 5 minutes. A little history on chess. It's originated in India or Persia. It's still unknown exactly where, but the chess we play today is developed by Europeans because the names of the pieces were different back when it started. So it's the oldest strategy game ever played. So it makes it kind of interesting, and it still exists. The current world champion is Viswanathan Anand. He's an Indian, so yes, represent. But anyway, let's jump right into it. Here's the chessboard. Clearly it has white pieces and black pieces. Now, basically what we're looking at right now is an arrangement of 2 rows and 8 columns. All right, on each side. And basically these pieces are a representation of the people who lived in medieval times, the structure of the society. So the pawns represent the serfs, etc. The knight is up in the chain. So there are more pawns, more serfs, because they are expendable forces to the king. The queen is the most powerful piece, which is right here. The king usually has a cross on top, so no matter what type of pieces you see, it would always have a cross. This, the knight, also looks like a horse. And this is the piece known as the rook or the castle. It has 2 names. They're used interchangeably. Alright, moving further. So these are pieces. So each side has 1 rook, 1 knight, 1 bishop. I forgot the bishop. And a queen. Now there's only 1 queen, so each side would have 2 bishops, 2 knights, and 2 rooks. Okay, and that's true for the black side also, but there's only 1 queen on each side. Okay, so far we've spent 2 minutes and 20 seconds talking about the setup. Now also to keep in mind is the fact that this is an 8x8 square board. But it is very important to make sure that each side's left corner square is black and the right corner square is white. Also, the queen goes in color, meaning the white queen would go in a white square, the black queen would go in a black square. Okay. At the ends are the rooks. In from the rooks are the knights. In from the knights are the bishops. And that's true for each side. Pawns always go in the front row, 8 of them. Okay, so altogether we got 32 pieces, 16 on each side, and they battle each other. The final objective is to get the king, such that he cannot move anywhere without being attacked. So the king has to be attacked, and there has to be a situation where he cannot go anywhere. For instance, let's take a look at this situation. Alright, and we're going to talk about in much more detail about how the pieces move. Now in this situation, let's say the move was the queen was moved here in front of the king. Now the queen covers all around, meaning the queen could do what the bishop can do, which is go diagonally, and what the rook can do, which is go horizontal or vertical in any either direction, as many spaces as he wants to. So he right now covers this whole lane, this whole lane, this whole lane, this lane, this square, and this square. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the queen is very powerful. Now in this case the king cannot move anywhere. He goes here, he's on the queen square. He can't go here because the queen still covers this square. He cannot go here because now the pawn is covering this square, and from here he cannot even go here because the queen is still covering that square. So basically the objective is to get the other side's opponent's king into this situation where he's immobilized and he's attacked from everywhere. Once that happens, it's called checkmate or check and mate, also interchangeably used. In Indian it's called moth, or Persian moth, death. Anyway, so now we have reached our 5-minute limit. However, let's briefly talk about the moves. The pawns could only move 1 or 2 at a time. 2 at a time only in the first move, otherwise they move 1 step at a time. Their power, they could only capture diagonally. For instance, this pawn could only capture this way. Special rule about pawns is called au passé. If the other side's pawn has reached more than half of the board and you move your pawn twice, since it's your first move, you have the option to move it 2 squares. That's the only time you can do that. This is the only time the opponent could capture your pawn diagonally, although your pawn is not sitting on that block, and take it. But he has to do it in the very next move. This is called au passé. Sometimes it does help, and you got to be careful about it. Second move is I'll show you how the bishop moves. Now there's a black bishop and a white bishop on each side. Okay, so the point being, the bishop in the black square could only move diagonally, into the black squares, meaning if he has the path clear. That's also another important thing. If somebody's in the bishop's path, he can't skip over them. For instance, if this is clear, he could go any one of these squares. However, if this guy is here, bishop is done. He cannot move. Okay, so that's about the bishop. The white bishop, the same way, could go into white squares but cannot skip over any pieces. The rook is fairly simple but complicated in the sense you got to be careful where you place the rook. He could only go vertical and horizontal. However, it's very powerful because right now it covers all these squares and all of these. So if any piece were to come on to any of these squares, he could capture them. We'll talk about a special move regarding the rook in a minute. The knight, very interesting character. He only moves 2 up, 1 across, or you can count it as 3 up. After going 1 across, 2 up, or 2 up, 1 across. Okay, so if the knight is here from the starting position, he covers these 2 squares. 2 up and 1 across in either direction. If he's sitting here, he covers 1, 2 up, 1 across, 2 up, 1 across, 2, 2 up, 1 across, 3, 2 up, 1 across, 4, 2 up, 1 across, 5, 2 up, 1 across, 6. He's very powerful once he's opened up. Also, the knight usually makes this move if he is in front of the king and the queen such that he could check the king and the queen at the same time. Just watch. Right now, whenever a knight checks, he could go over pieces. So there could be pieces in between, but that doesn't affect the knight's power, because he's powerful enough to skip over pieces. So he's still attacking this king. So the king has no option but to move. Now when the king moves, the knight almost always captures the queen, because the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. Okay, we had another accident. Oops. Alright. Got back. Now, we're up to our most powerful piece, which is the queen. This board is kind of small and the pieces are very light, so I'm not the biggest fan of this board. However, this is what I have to work with right now. Okay. The queen, as we talked about before, covers the rook and the bishop together. And the pawn, you could say. He can move any number of spaces he wishes, forward, backward, meaning horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. So it's extremely powerful. Now, if, for example, if the queen is here, let's say this bishop is not there, he checks this guy, the king on the opposing side. King could be protected, but at the same time the queen could make it really horrible for this rook who's now cornered, and in the next move the queen would capture it. So anyhow, this was a brief tutorial of how to play chess. White always starts first.